Well, hello to all of you and welcome to our Wealth 5.0 series in October. We're going to have a really exciting month. We've got some awesome content to share with you. We've got some great speakers that we're going to share with you. And I'm going to take you through the sequence of what it's all going to be about. But before we do, I want to see who's in the room and who's concentrating. Because if you know me well, my name is Scott Piggin, and you'll know that whenever I do webinars, I don't like to just sit here and I passively give you the information. I like you to think and get involved. So what is this all about? It's how to invest offshore, live anywhere, become a global citizen, and create a global real estate portfolio. But before we get started, I would like you just to type, there's a little box in the top right-hand corner, and I'd like you to type in, what is Wealth 5.0? What does it actually mean? Let's see how you can engage your brain and get into active. I'd love to see what your thoughts are in terms of what Wealth 5.0 is. So we've got someone here from Mozambique. What is Wealth 5.0? We've got a question mark. Give it a guess if you don't know. I'm always fascinated to see what people think. Becoming a global citizen. Property diversification. The fifth force and climate change, 5x your impact and your income. Nice, I'm enjoying all these creative answers. Having a purpose. So while all these are coming through, diversify income stream globally, conscious investing, it's creating wealth, improving our lifestyle, taking wealth to the next level smartly, enabling to get 5+ return on your investments. Next revolution and adoption, the rugby score. That's pretty nearly accurate, although certainly not today's rugby score. The next industrial revolution, Wealth 5.0, hopefully will provide me with the direction with regards to an offshore package. How to use Wealth Migrate investment site to invest properly and globally using technology. Freedom and abundance, socially based investing. It's freedom and investing your time in things you really want to do. Maybe 5K figure in dollars. So what we're going to do is over the next 2 months, we're going to be spending a lot of time on Wealth 5.0, because what's really exciting is that there are some massive trends that are happening around the world, and a number of people have actually spoken to them. And what is actually transpiring and where the opportunity lies is that they're all actually converging together. And we're now, believe it or not, 3 months away from the start of the next decade. So if you ask yourself, what were you doing back in 1999? How different was your life back from 1999? Or what about 2009? When you think about it, if you take the cell phone, back in 99, my mother said that having a cell phone was extravagant. In 2009, none of you had caught an Uber or stayed in an Airbnb. And yet look at what has taken place. And what do you think is going to happen over the next decade? And how prepared for you are you? So one of the things that we're going to be looking at over the next 2.5 months as we get prepared, I'll be taking a Christmas break, so call it up until the 15th of December. We'll be looking at Wealth 5.0. Now this comes from the Japanese, it comes from Society 5.0, comes from Entrepreneur 5.0, and it's a collaboration of all of them, which gives you Wealth 5.0. And the first thing is all about the impact. It's about purpose and sustainability and solving the sustainable development goals. The second is about your creativity and your ability to create value. The third is about high touch. It's how many people can you collaborate with, and through collaborative smart investing, how much value can you give to other people? How big is your network? Then it's about high tech, AI, big data, VR, crypto, blockchain, etc., all the exponential technologies. And then finally, it's about digital. It's about problem solving. It's about solving your problems, and it's about future proofing. So before I go any further, I want to ask a quick poll, and I want to see for the people who are online, because it always interests me, what has been your interaction with Wealth Migrate so far? Is this your first webinar? Have you been following us for a while? Have you already invested? Or maybe you're already a wealth partner, which is a shareholder in our platform. I'm always fascinated to see, because obviously with regards to this whole webinar series and the live events we're doing next month, we want to try and reach as many people as possible. We want to try and add as much value as possible in terms of where we're at. And so I'll give this another 30 seconds or so. I can see about 60% of people have voted. And so I'd love you just to vote, because it's always very interesting for us to understand exactly who's turning up, and also helps me to know what level to be able to present this webinar at. Okay, so we can see that we've got about 72% engagement, 73, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll leave it at that. To the 27% who didn't engage, I hope for your sake I don't fall asleep on this webinar and I can add lots of value to you. So let's look at what tonight's webinar is going to be all about. It's the 5 secrets to offshore real estate investment. We're going to look at where the top investors get their research and information, how you can choose the best real estate partners in the US, the UK, and Australia, how to build a passive income. There's so many people want a passive income, but how do you actually build one? Why offshore financing works and how you can benefit from OPM. And most people don't even know what OPM actually stands for. So it's really important that that you do, have an understanding of that. Why offshore? How you can easily build the best team so that you can manage a global portfolio. Now, this webinar, for those of you that there were, 20, 50, 58% of people, this is either their first webinar or they've been following us for a while. The intention of this month was that this first webinar, I'm going to go back to basics. I'm going to share with you, all the different skills, the experience that we've got, and how we believe we can add value so that we can help you with the 5 secrets to offshore real estate investment. Now, if you've already invested with us or you're a wealth partner, you might find this webinar to be a little bit back to basics. But as we go through the month, we're going to be enhancing the advancement. So, you can actually go to the link, which is here. You can see the link on the screen. So if you want to join or if you want to share it with your friends and family, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/wealth5-webinar. Okay, so you should have all found that already. And it's got all the webinars already. So if you go to this link here, it's actually got all the webinars already. You can go and understand about all the different webinars and what they're all about in terms of that series. So you can go and read all about it, and or you can share it with your friends. Then the next webinar is how you can immigrate overseas, either financially or physically. So how do you get a first world passport? You can hear about real life stories and how they've actually achieved it. You can basically listen to immigration experts who've helped hundreds of people invest, and many of our clients. You can also understand what it takes to immigrate financially to another country. And most importantly, you can understand what it takes to become a global citizen and how you can take advantage of this for you and your family. So webinar 1 tonight is setting up the foundation. Webinar 2 is starting to build a taller building. Then webinar 3 on October the 22nd is how to build a $100 million business, sell it, and live wherever you want. There's a principle in life that if you want to get successful, copy successful people. We're going to be interviewing a lady that has built a business and sold it for 9 figures. She's subsequently invested in global real estate. She's invested in global exponential technology businesses. She's immigrated from South Africa. She now lives in Austin, Texas. And we're going to ask her, what are her secrets to success? The fastest way to be successful is to copy successful people. We're going to ask her how she's achieved her goals in life. And we're also going to ask her where she sees the opportunities going forward into 2020. This is a true epitome of a global citizen, and you'll have the ability to learn directly in terms of her secrets. She's won many awards, not only in Africa, but globally, and certainly someone that you can learn a huge amount from. And then we're going to finish off the October series at the end of October, the 29th of October. We're going to be interviewing someone that runs a family office. Now, if you don't know what a family office is, they basically are used by the wealthiest people in the world. The wealthiest families in the world not only want to create and preserve their wealth, but they also want to create generational wealth. And this gentleman is going to arrive with 2 of his top financial planning people, and they help some of the wealthiest families in South Africa and America. And we're going to be running through what they are doing with the money of the wealthiest families to not only create but preserve wealth. We're going to speak about diversification and how it's important to build a balanced investment portfolio. We're going to be looking at structures and tax and where the best jurisdictions are and how it works best. We're going to be looking at the future of emerging markets, including South Africa. Is it a good time to be investing in South Africa? Is it a bad time? Should you be diversifying or shouldn't you? We're going to be looking at the future of the world economy and what you need to be made of, the risks and equally the opportunity. And then we're going to be looking at 2020 and beyond and the key things you need to know to ensure success going into the next decade. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is our Wealth 5.0 October series. And my question is, we're going to share all this value with you so that we can add as much value to you as possible. And my only request is that you share this with your family and friends. If we add value to you tonight, share the link with your family and friends. It really irritates me that people all over the world are living in a state of fear. They're worried about where the global economy is going. People in South Africa are worried about the future of South Africa. And I believe that the number one thing we can do is give them access to the knowledge so that they can make educated and informed decisions for themselves. And so please do me a favor. If we add value to you, please make sure that you're sharing it with your friends and family. And then in November, we decided to finish the year strong. I sat back a couple of months ago. I was talking to a bunch of my friends, and I was just appalled by how many people were wanting to immigrate and how many concerned people is that I was meeting. And I was one of the very first people to do investment breakfasts. In fact, I think I actually created the category back in 2007, long before anyone else was doing it. And I thought, let's go back to basics and let's run an investor breakfast, an offshore investor breakfast, where we're going to run through everything that people need to know about investing in terms of offshore, not only from myself, who's been helping people for 20 years, but also from our authorities in the space and also our partners. And I'll talk about this later. And then on the weekend for our wealth partners, we're going to be running a wealth weekend, which is going to be the 15th to the 17th of November. It's going to be in the Gauteng area. We've actually booked a game reserve. And on the Saturday and the Sunday morning, we're going to be running a global wealth masterclass. Now, again, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. It's only for wealth partners, and there is an ability for non-wealth partners to participate, but it is going to be by invite only because it's going to be a very exclusive session for our top VIP partners and wealth partners to set themselves up for success going into 2020. So, without further ado, it is time, and that was a little 10-minute introduction to the whole series. It's time to get into tonight's webinar, which is the 5 secrets to offshore real estate investment success. Let's start with what I believe is one of the most important frameworks in life, and it's called the Golden Circle. It comes from Simon Sinek. Now, most people in life are running around trying to figure out how and what. There's many of you who are here tonight that are going, how can I invest offshore and what do I need to do? I fundamentally believe, and this is why it resonated so much with me, and I'd highly recommend going to watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk on the Golden Circle. But you need to start with the why. It's the why which drives you forward. It's the why which gets you that purpose and persistence when the going gets tough. And so let me explain to you what our why is so that you understand what we do and why we do it. Let's start with the story of my dad. So my father basically was a farmer in Zimbabwe, and in 1976 he left Zimbabwe with literally whatever they could fit in the car. Now, I was born in Durban, South Africa in February 1977. And my dad did what you were all taught to do. He went to school, he went to university, he worked really hard, he became a chartered accountant, he became financial director of Rainbow Chickens. He trusted the financial industry, he invested, he paid his taxes. And yet on the 1st of August 2005, my father actually passed away broke. Now, what's really quite horrifying is that every single person watching this webinar, 94% of you statistically will follow my father. At the age of 65, you'll either be broke, dead, or relying on the government. And what's fascinating to me is that a further 5% will be deemed to be what's called financially independent. But according to the financial industry, financially independent means that you earn 25% less than your last paycheck, which in simple terms to me just means you're 25% poorer. And what fascinates me is we're all working hard, we're all going to school, we're all trying to get great jobs, we're all trying to invest, we're all trying to set ourselves up for retirement, and yet less than 1% of people are actually succeeding. And so this is me and my dad. I was 13 years old. This was my first property project, and I decided that there had to be a different way. I decided that I was not following the traditional way and ending up like the traditional statistics. At the age of 6, I absolutely loved computers. This was me programming on a Commodore 64 with a little turtle logo and learning to program and wanting to marry the two industries together between property and technology. I also loved the game of Monopoly. And like most people, you know, to this day, I enjoy playing Monopoly. But I asked myself a question: why could we not turn the game of Monopoly into a real life game? And then growing up in Africa, we are constantly aware of the wealth gap, the difference between the haves and the have-nots. And what's fascinating is, as I got older and I learned more and more about the research, according to the world statistics, the top 1% owns more than 50% of the world's wealth, and it's getting worse. In 1972, it was only 22%. And I can tell you why if you're interested as well. Secondly, depending on where you're born geographically, it's like a geographic lottery, because if you're born in North America, Europe, Japan, or Australia, you have a tendency to be wealthier. Everywhere else, you have a problem. If you're a lady, less than 10% of billionaires are ladies. I've read stats as little as 1% of the world's wealth is held by ladies or females, and as we know, they're 50% of the world's population. And if you're a millennial, I'm sorry, you were just born at the wrong time. All the facts are screwed, and that is why, sorry, not screwed, skewed is what I meant to say. But what I wanted to share with you quickly is a quick video, which for me sums up pretty much what I'm actually trying to say here about the facts and where the world is going, and more importantly, how we solve this global challenge. So I just want to check you can all hear me. You should be able to all hear me. So hopefully that summed up not only the problem, but the solution, which we're so passionate about. And some of the stats that I brought up there that are so important: 49% of the world's wealth is held in real estate, and yet only 12.9% of the world's population actually has access to that real estate. And of that 12.9%, you and me, less than 1% of us is going to retire wealthy at the age of 65. Now, I've said that a couple of times tonight on purpose, because if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to keep getting what you've always got. And statistically, that doesn't end well. And so we decided to change that. We decided to empower the 99% to be able to invest like the top 1%. Our vision is to make investing as simple as a swipe of a finger. And ultimately, one day, we want to get it down to $1 per person per investment. Now, what's really interesting is I have people all over the world say to me, but $1 is not going to make any difference. I go, no, I disagree with you. Because what you can do is you can change someone's habits. And if you can change their habits, you can change their financial destiny. So please, tonight, I'm going to share with you skills, secrets, and tips. And whether you've got $1 to invest, $1,000, $100,000, or $10 million, it doesn't matter. You get wealthy by your habits. You don't get wealthy by one-off investment, be it in cryptocurrency, the stock market, or in property. And so the question I've got for you is, are you in the top 1%? When I present all over the world, people are like, oh, well, am I in the top 1%? And so, you know, we've got members in 133 countries. And if you look, this came out fairly recently from Forbes magazine. And you can actually see here, depending on what country you're in. But there's also another question I ask people. If you're in South Africa, as an example, and you earn more than $162,000 US dollars, then you could say that you're in the top 1%. But I sometimes question that, because just because you're earning that, say, as a salary, are you investing like the top 1%? And I'm going to share with you tonight some skills, tricks, and tips that you might answer. I might be earning that in an income, but I'm still not investing like the top 1%. And that's the challenge I have for you. For those people that are skeptical and you're saying, well, listen, Scott, it's a Tuesday night, and why are you sitting up, doing a webinar to hundreds and hundreds of people? It's really interesting. We've had nearly 1,000 people sign up and be part of this webinar series. So clearly it's touching, a sore point for people in terms of providing them with solutions. But, people say, well, why are you doing it for free? Well, it's really simple for us. There's been large adoption in online learning. When it comes to online investing, there's been large growth, but not global adoption yet. And the currency of the new economy, the currency of the, not only the 21st century, but of the next decade, is trust. And how do you build trust? Well, you build it by marrying together both the online education and the online investing. And that's how we believe we can close this adoption gap, because it's something that we are very passionate about in terms of wanting to provide people with the opportunity. The third thing I wanted to say with you is a story that some of you might have heard and some of you might not. Now, you heard the story of my dad, who left, literally Zimbabwe in his car and was very reactive and basically drove down to South Africa and tried to build a life for himself here. And as I said, unfortunately joined the statistics. My uncle was very different. My uncle decided not to leave Zimbabwe. And in 1980, he started investing offshore. And he started investing in first world assets with a first world income. And what was fascinating to me is that 23 years later, at the age of 53, he decided it was time to leave Zimbabwe. Now, it doesn't matter why he wanted to leave Zimbabwe, but he did. And what's interesting, at the age of 53, is it's very difficult to get into Australia, because after 45, it becomes very tricky. And he bought his way into Australia. Now, this is not a picture of my uncle. It's just a fun picture of a gentleman with a passport. But he bought his way into Australia. He bought a magnificent house in Brisbane for cash. He sent his kid to this school, Churchy, which is one of the best private schools in Australia. And his son has just finished high school and is actually at university at the moment, and is currently looking at going to on a rowing scholarship to the likes of Melbourne, Harvard, Oxford, or Cambridge. And it's really just amazing, because we're going to talk about education later. And the part that I always say with a bit of humor is that my uncle never had to work for an Australian. And I believe this is quite a big thing. I've heard the story of a gentleman, I met the person personally, who was in Australia, and he said to me, Scott, I used to be a general and now I'm a foot soldier. And none of us want to go forward in life to go backwards. And so what was the difference between my father and my uncle? Well, it was all about being strategic. My uncle at the age of 30 was strategic. He was proactive. He started investing offshore. And what that allowed him to do was to have the freedom of choice. Whereas my dad was reactive and unfortunately had to just take the circumstances as they came. And so what is this webinar all about? It's freedom of choice. We are deeply passionate about offering people freedom of choice. We don't care where you want to live. We don't care where you want to send your kids to school, to university, whether you want to donate money to the church or another charity. We don't care about that. But what we do care about, what we're deeply passionate about, is you having the freedom to be able to make that choice. We also believe in peace of mind. And I'm going to share with you tonight some skills, some tricks, and some tips so that you can have the peace of mind, no matter where you are and where you live in the world. It's about wealth preservation. There's no point in working all your life to have your wealth decimated by a shift in economies or a shift in currencies. And it's also about having a plan B. The wealthiest people in the world, the most successful, entrepreneurs, they don't just have a plan A, they've got a plan B, a plan C, and a plan D. And so we want to give you the different alternatives so that you too can have a plan B. And so before I go any further, I'd like you to either write it down on a piece of paper. You don't have to share it if you don't want, or you can type it in the chat box. But I'd like to know why you are here, because there's absolutely no point in us going any further and me giving you all the information that I've learned over the last 2 decades unless you're clear on why you're here. Because you'll probably just sit there playing on Facebook, playing on Instagram, and when the going gets tough, whether tonight, tomorrow, or in a month's time, you'll just go, ah, and you'll give up. Okay, and I've got no interest in giving up. I want people to go on a journey. I am deeply passionate about giving people the freedom that we speak of, but they've got to get clear on their why. Now, I've shared with you my why. What is your why? Why are you here? So that you know, and again, you don't have to share it with me publicly. You can write it down. I don't care. But what I do care about very strongly is that you get clear on your why. Because if you came tonight to worry about the what and the how, then you've missed the why. And the real focus of tonight's webinar is going to be around the why. Over the next couple of weeks and at the events next month, we'll focus more on the how and the what. But if you don't start with the why, you will not succeed. I virtually guarantee it. And so I can see a whole bunch of people have put through their why, which is fantastic. And if you're not clear on it, my challenge to you is to go and get clear on it. There's some reason you signed up for this webinar series, and even more importantly, you turned up. So let's look at the principles of investing. Now, I've only been doing this for 20 years. I've helped some of the wealthiest people invest from 133 countries around the world. And I'd have to say, I'd have to be an idiot not to spot patterns. And so these are the 8 major things that you need to consider when taking into account property investing, whether it's local or international. Firstly, you need to understand the macro and microeconomic factors of a country. You need to understand the location of a property, where it is situated. You need to understand the due diligence that is being done. You need to understand the risks. There are always risks in an investment, and therefore you need to understand those risks. And as my uncle taught me 20 years ago, if you can manage those risks, if you can manage the worst case scenario, then everything else is upside. You need to know how to choose the right partners. You've got tax, compliance, bank accounts, and structures. You've got the fancy financial way of saying it, which is managing your asset or sweating the asset. And then ultimately, it's about understanding the exit. These are the 8 steps that you need to know about property investing. Now let's look at some of the mistakes that people make. Do you realize that when people invest offshore, statistically, more than 80% of people actually lose their money? So most people put their money overseas to protect it, and yet statistically, more than 80% of people that actually invest overseas lose their money, which I find absolutely fascinating. Why do they do that? Firstly, they make crisis investments. So you can use my father as an example, who went straight to South Africa, versus my uncle, who was much more strategic. You could use my mother, who in 2001, the rand ran against the pound, and her financial advisor, the all-knowing financial advisor, said, "Oh, the rand, is going to go to 50 to the pound. You better get all your money out." So she took it out at 21 or 22 to the pound. And then a couple of years later, he said, "Oh no, I made a mistake now. You must bring it all back." And so she brought it all back at like 12 rand to the pound. That's a crisis investment. They don't get the right information. I think it's a fairly good story of explaining that. They've got the wrong partners. They don't understand cash flow. They work with companies without local and international offices. They underestimate the after sales and the costs. And one of my favorites is that they buy off plan. It's not as popular now as it used to be, but I've seen it rear its ugly head over the last decade, which is where people buy stuff off plan. They put down a 10% deposit, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, the price is going to double in a year, and you're going to double your money." It's the fastest way to lose money, and it's probably caused me more headaches over the last 20 years than anything else in terms of that process. And then something else that's pretty interesting is that people underestimate technology. The world is changing. I've just come back from San Diego in America, in California. It's just amazing what is happening there with regards to technology. And I bought everything online on Amazon, and it was literally delivered the next day to my hotel. And then people wonder why shopping centers are going bankrupt. I had a lady that I met a couple of months ago on an airplane, and she said, "Oh no, she's buying shopping centers." I said, "Well, you're not worried about e-commerce and Amazon and Kalahari and whatever?" She said, "Oh no, that'll never happen in Africa." And it just blows my mind. I was like, "Yeah, when we were doing Volkswagens, cars never turned up." And what's interesting is that a couple of, probably 2 months ago, I saw this article where these South African investors will be hurting after a large property company lost 30% of its value in one go. In one day, it lost 30% of its value. Why? Because it owns all the big shopping centers in England. It's like a no-brainer. If you go to England, you can buy, my mate bought a screw on Amazon, and it was delivered within 1 hour. Why would he want to get in a car and go to a shopping center? It is illogical. And yet, these very esteemed companies, Coronation, the PIC, Sanlam, Investec, Old Mutual, Stanlib, and PSG, all believe that this is a good investment, even though it lost 30%. And I always joke with people, as long as you can put an ad in the airport, then that's what should make you trustworthy. So let's look at local versus offshore. I'm going to keep this very simple, but on a returns level, I believe locally you can often get higher returns than offshore. Property is easier locally than offshore, it's tougher. Peace of mind, I don't believe you get peace of mind locally, but you can offshore. Financial family planning, maybe locally, definitely offshore. A rand hedge, no locally. Offshore, yes. And diversification, no, whereas offshore, yes. And so why invest offshore and why it makes sense? Well, you've got low asset values. Now, obviously, they've grown quite a lot over the last couple of years, but they're still low and a fairly strong rand. And unfortunately, this is a little diagram on the right here, but the cost of your investment is in blue and it's just continuing to rise. And the value of your currency, the rand, is devaluing. And that gap is just getting wider and wider. I've explained to you already that the wealthiest people make strategic investment approaches versus crisis management. My uncle took 23 years to set himself up for success. It wasn't an overnight success. And I encourage you, I invite you to go on a journey so that you too can have the freedom to make those choices. You also get to control the variables. There are great opportunities and capital can unlock those opportunities. And also at the moment, you can use your foreign direct investment allowance. You can take R1 million discretionary per year and 10 million rand if your taxes are in favor. It's 11 million rand per adult, basically. Some of the pitfalls in offshore investing, very similar to local investing. Wrong information, wrong purchase process, wrong valuations, wrong tenants, cash flow problems, maintenance problems, wrong for the property market, can't sell, no customer service. Now, we've got 3 white papers. We've got the 5 laws of building wealth through real estate, and that is really entry level for people that want to know how to build and create value for in real estate if they hadn't started yet. Then we've got the 5 keys to offshore real estate investment success. I'm going to be going through that tonight. That's the intermediate level and people wanting to invest offshore. And then we've got the 4 ways to expand your global real estate portfolio through strategic partnerships. And that's for sophisticated and advanced investors that want to build global portfolios. And if you'd like access to the white papers, I'll share with you later how we can give you the access. So the question is, what I love by Nelson Mandela is he says, money won't create success, the freedom to make it will. And so my question is, what are you doing about it? What we're passionate about is giving you the freedom to make it and ultimately to have that freedom, what we talk about. So let's look at these 5 secrets and let's go into them in a bit of detail. The first secret is about information and research. Now, I've put up two videos there. They are on YouTube. You can go and look them up. You can see the links there to the YouTube. And it reminds me of an interesting story. Back in 2012, I went to America in 2010. I knew there was an opportunity to invest in America. There'd been absolute chaos in the American property market. Different cities had lost anywhere from 40 to 70%, depending on where you were. And when I went in 2010, I spent nearly a month there with my wife, and we could not find any partners that we could trust. And so we went home with our tail between our legs, and we said, we just can't access this market. We're going to make mistakes. I went back in 2012 with a business partner, Brenda Brown and Neil Peterson, that runs Real Estate Investor magazine. And we did it differently. Rather than trying to go find properties, we went to find partners. And we found partners on the ground that we trusted. And we came back and we started talking to our investors about it. And there was a gentleman called Peter Weaver that was actually selling American property. And it was really interesting because I never normally take on competitors, but he took me on publicly and he went out to all, everyone. It's a very small industry. Everyone always talks to each other. And it was really interesting because he was selling these properties with these great investment returns. And yet when I actually went to America and dealt with our partners on the ground, they showed us that unfortunately these properties were on the wrong side of the street. So the one side of the street, you could go to the one set of schools, education district, and the other side of the street, you could go to the bad, you could only go to the bad schools. And they'd just been downgraded to have the worst education system. It was in a city called Atlanta in the whole of America. And so people were trying to get out of it. Now, obviously, you as an unsuspecting foreigner didn't know that. Even if you flew there on an airplane, an estate agent wouldn't tell you that. And that's all about having local partners on the ground. And so I actually went and did some videos to share with people about how they were getting financing, because what they were doing is they were buying the houses for $50,000. They were selling them to unsuspecting South Africans for $100,000, and then they were giving them bank finance, which is why you've got a picture of me outside Bank of America. And then the second video was what I called Unweave the Truth, which is where I was comparing apples with apples, or arguably apples with lemons. And again, I explained it. Now, this was not about bashing someone. It was just about giving people the truth and ultimately looking at the research and the investment trends. Because when you're investing, the information and the research is the most important thing that you could do. So whether you're looking at America, England, Australia, or even South Africa, you've got to know where to get the research. And you know, for us, there's a gentleman called Clem Sunter. Most people know Clem Sunter. He's one of the 5 most respected scenario planners around the world. I'd been following him for years, and he does this whole scenario planning. And many, many years ago, I decided to create a 5-dimensional model so that I could take what he was teaching us with scenario planning, and I could make intelligent decisions on where to invest. And I shared it with him, and he very kindly agreed to actually endorse my book, which is Property Going Global. It was published in 2014. And in simple terms, I want to share with you, this is the global scenarios that Clem Sunter talks about. It ultimately takes that. It takes into account the global wealth index, which I don't have time tonight to talk about, but it's like CPI, consumer price index, and ultimately it's your global wealth index, which is how much is your currency and your value. It then takes all the facts and figures. So at the breakfast, I'll go into this in a lot more detail, where you can find the best facts around the world, if it's England, Australia, America, South Africa, or anywhere else in the world, the top 20 countries in the world to invest. And rather than making decisions based on your gut feel, make it based on the economic data and the facts and the research. That then goes into our 4-dimensional model, which helps you know where to invest and when to invest based on a risk-return ratio. Again, I'm not an estate agent. I don't tell you to invest in London, and that for the last 20 years, London's been the best place to invest. That tends to be what salesmen like to do. Having invested as an investor for the last 20 years on 4 different continents, I believe that there are times right to invest in certain countries and certain cities, and there are wrong times. And it's all about timing and getting your maths right to know what to do. Once you get down to that, there's a 10-layered multi-modeling system, which you can get much more accurate around the property and the facilities and the transport and everything else. And then you go down to the actual financial analysis of the property. What is the cash on cash return? What is the internal rate of return? And again, at the breakfast, I'll go into this in a lot more detail. And finally, we built that into a system, which we call our Global Investment Due Diligence System, or GIDS. And ultimately, it takes all the factors that I've just spoken about. So currency movements, macro, micro, financial structuring, how do you actually find the right partners, the due diligence, the ongoing management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when one looks at the track record, this is not something to boast about, but if you look at the market analytics in the different countries between England, Australia, and America, you can see when we got into markets, you can see when we got out of markets, and you can see when we got back into markets. I mean, a good example was in England. We literally got in right at the bottom of the crash. We rode the wave to the top. We stopped investing, at the top, and we actually have just started investing in the UK again over here. In Australia, very similar pattern in terms of we stopped investing, we started investing again here. And in America, we literally started investing within 3 months of the bottom of the curve. Now, are we clever? No. We've got systems. If you plug in the facts and figures, it helps you make the right decisions. It's just the way it is. And if we'd fluked it in one market, I would understand that. But if we've got it right over 20 years in 3 different markets, I think it's something we can take into account. And yet most people don't care. When I catch an Uber, no one cares how the algorithm brings me and the driver together. And so I tend to joke with people, but when I wrote my book, Property Going Global, the only person that actually read my book was my mother. And so we decided to take all that technology and put it into a system. And ultimately, it helps people know where to invest, when to invest, what to invest, who to invest, and how to invest. And it's all what we call collaborative smart investing, which I'll talk a lot more about at the breakfast. So that's the first one. It's all about your information and your research. That's your secret number one. Your second secret is about finding the right partners. So I want to take you on a little bit of a journey with regards to, sorry, someone's saying my volume is fluctuating. If anyone else could just let me know if there's any problems with my sound. I don't see anything happening on my side. The second secret is finding the right partners. Most people think that when you invest in property, you invest in the property. I don't believe you do. I believe you invest in people. I believe you invest in partners, because it's the quality of your partners that are going to ultimately determine your returns. And so when I look at my 20+ year track record of investing, this was the that first project. You saw a picture of me right in the beginning with me and my dad on the construction site. This was the double bedroom ensuite bathroom that I was part of. And in my little head, I project managed the whole thing. I'm sure there was architects and QSs and everything else, but that's where my parents deserve the credit because they gave me the self-belief. Then my first real project, I've got a funny story if you want to know about how we did a development when we were at Varsity, but we didn't have planning permissions, so we had to put that one, we had to take that one down. My first real project was when I was 22. We bought a 5-bedroom house in Rondebosch, Cape Town. We developed it into 6 townhouses, which you can see here. Then when I was 24, we actually bought our first house in London. You can see there it was just after September the 11th. It was one of these terraced council houses, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And from that experience, we had a lot of our friends coming to us and saying, well, how could we invest? And I was 25 years old. I realized I'd be one of the world's worst employees in the world. And so I set up a company called IPS, International Property Solutions. And through that company, we helped thousands of South Africans invest into England, Australia, America, and South Africa. So you can see all the South African investments, the London investments, the Australian investments, and then the American investments. We won a number of awards. We were the very first company in Africa to be put onto the board of AIPP, which is the Association of International Property Professionals. We won numerous different awards, many of which I've got sitting on my desk here, which I'm still very proud of, back in the mid-2000s for helping people invest. And then around, going into the second decade, around 2012, 2013, we started helping get people involved into commercial. And we've done numerous commercial projects and industrial projects, again, around the world in terms of that process. So the question I've got for you is, how do you find the right partners? And I believe it's a real skill set. I often say to people, I don't believe that I'm the best at finding you a property because it's so difficult, and property is a localized opportunity. But what I do believe that I'm very good at is finding you partners. I've been doing it for now 20 years exactly. I started in 1999. And back from the very first medical deals, the ones that Allvest are now managing, I was the one to actually find that through a partner called Mandy Taylor. The point being is that it's not about arrogance. We built a team of people that know how to go out and find the right partners. And so we've got a huge array of good qualified partners, whether they're in England, South Africa, Australia, or America. And we've done everything from medical buildings. We've done a Big 5 game reserve. We've done a Thailand resort. We've done industrial property. And really, for me, it's actually the experience that helps us. But there's 3 key criteria to us when we're finding a partner. The first is that they've been in business for 10 years. We believe that this is critically important because not only is it easy to work when the market is rising, but how do they perform when the market last crashed? Secondly, we want to know that they're niche and they're focused. If they do medical buildings, we want them just to do medical buildings. If they do residential, we want them just to do residential. We don't want them to be doing 20 different things. And thirdly, they have to put their own money in. It's a critically important thing that they are putting their own money in so that our investors are aligned long-term in terms of the process. And we've got a whole due diligence. And when we do our due diligence, we actually focus far more on the partner before we start worrying about the property. So if you go in here, and this is just an example, I've actually logged in directly to the platform. So if you go to WealthE Migrate and you literally sign in, I've already signed in. So I've gone in and I've chosen one of the properties. And you can see here that you can see who the partner is. You can see who the due diligence is. You've got the whole risk weighting and the category. You can go read all about the sponsor and the due diligence and how it's all been done. So this is really important when one is choosing one's partnership. And, for me, I just wanted to reiterate how important this actually is in terms of this process and finding the right partners. The other thing that's important is it doesn't always go right. And so, there was a partner that was found in Australia through one of my other partners. And unfortunately, this partner has not delivered, up to expectation. We were meant to build this 50-story building in Brisbane, and we were all going to make a great return. I personally invested in this deal, like most of the other deals that we've helped people invest in. And yet the partner did not deliver on what they had to do. And we've actually had to kick the partner out, and we've had to reset the entire project. And although people, I don't believe, are going to lose capital, what we have lost is opportunity costs. So it doesn't always work. if you think when it comes to property, I've been investing for the last 20 years, if you think that people aren't going to make mistakes or that economies and cycles are not going to change, then you're dreaming. You've never been involved in investing. But what's critically important is if you choose the right partners, they stand the test of time. You know, I wrote chapter 13 of my book around all the lessons that I've learned, all the times that I've helped people, I've nurtured them, I've held their hand, I've fought for them, with them to solve it. And eventually you come right in the end. But it takes that tenacity, it takes that persistence, and most importantly, it takes partners that care about their investors. Let's look at the third one. And I just want to make sure here when I look at the partners that there was anything. I have spoken about the ARPP. I've spoken about the importance of having presence. And yeah. The next one is about cash flow and income. You know what's fascinating to me, and even to this day, I find people investing from South Africa, China, you know, Dubai, all over the world, wanting to invest in off-plan developments. And the whole sales pitch is that there's going to be capital growth and you're going to make lots of money. Well, if I've learned one thing from wealthy people, both when the markets are good, but even more importantly, when the markets are bad, is that those who focus on cash flow or income not only survive market corrections, but they actually thrive. And a great example of this is that house that I bought back in 2002. It was a 3-bedroom house, but what we actually did is we put a conservatory on. So we put this conservatory on, we joined up to this outhouse, this room here, and by doing that, we turned this 3-bedroom house into a 5-bedroom house. What that allowed us to do is that it dramatically increased our rental income. And literally from day one, we've earned more than £1,000 passive income from this property, literally from day one. Never not done that since 2002. Now, if I compared this to the other property that we were weighing up, which was a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, it was up on the hill, it was very sexy, it would have got us, you know, we were both, me and my mate at the time, we bought it, we were both single, it would have been great to get a girlfriend, but it wouldn't have been a great investment because there was no way to increase the cash flow, there was no way to increase the income. Whereas we bought this house, we renovated ourselves, we put on this conservatory. Now, this is a great way not to get a girlfriend, I just want to be very clear on that, but it's a great way to make money. And as I said to you, we've had a passive income. And really what's fascinating to me is that when we had the crash in 2008, 2009, our mortgage on a £300,000 mortgage was something ridiculous, like £26 a month. Because what happens in those is they dropped interest rates and we were on a fixed interest rate. And so it was a joke. I mean, our Sky TV, which is like DSTV, was £59 a month. So our mortgage was less than half. And I actually wish the crash had lasted forever. And I actually wish I'd bought every property on the screen. Another story is that even though I'd helped 2,500 people, including myself, buy houses and apartments, it was in 2009, I was in Bondi Beach, Sydney, and I met two very, very wealthy investors. One was a US dollar millionaire, one was a US dollar billionaire. And like you're probably, if you know anything about me, I'm always out there trying to find what wealthy people are doing. And so I said, what are you doing? What are you investing in? And they said medical buildings. Now, I asked you earlier if you were part of the top 1%, and you might have been able to put up your hand if you earned an income in the top 1%. But my question to you is, do you own a medical building, an aged care building, a hospital? And if you don't, then I don't believe you're investing like a top 1%er. Because I asked them the question, I said, why medical? And they said, Scott, think about it. No matter what happens globally in the global economy, people will need doctors. They are economically resilient. I went, wow, that makes sense. Secondly, doctors never leave their premises. I thought back to my childhood. I thought, geez, you're right. You know, in my case, my doctors passed away, but the premises are still medical premises. And thirdly, doctors are very good at being doctors, but they're not accountants. And so they sign long-term favorable leases. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have an honors degree cum laude in property and technology. I have a master's degree cum laude in property and technology. And the question I have is, with all these degrees and all this knowledge I'm supposed to have, why did no one teach me to invest in medical when it was so simple? And so I turned to them and I said, listen, this is a no-brainer. I want to participate. And they said, fine, there's 8 slots. It's 5 million Australian dollars each, $40 million investment. Today, that company is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. It's worth $700 million. And to be honest, I knew that I wanted to invest. I just didn't have $5 million. And that for me is what it's all about when it comes to income and cash flow. When we started investing in America, and specifically when we started looking at medical buildings, I asked our partners, I said, listen, What happened to you in 2008, 2009? I told you already that the residential market lost anywhere from 40 to 70%. They said we never lost one tenant. So you could argue that the capital growth might have gone down, and it might have, but who cares? It doesn't matter if you don't sell. If your income remains stable, then you can not only survive an economic correction, but you can thrive. And so if I just show you here some of the performance in terms of, you know, what we're looking at, and, you know, sorry, just before I go to the performance, I'm just reading my notes here. Another thing that's really important is that I had someone call me last week and say, oh, they're going to invest in Dubai and they're going to buy this off-plan development and they've got a 2-year rental guarantee at 15%. That is the biggest load of BS I've ever heard in my life. All that they do is they take the property, they increase the price by $100,000 or $200,000, and they basically pay your money back over the next 2 years. If you're getting a rental guarantee, you need to ask yourself where the money is coming from. And then the other thing, obviously, when it comes to cash flow and income, is you've got to make sure you've got partners on the ground that can actually execute. You know, I always say to people, and I go back to that story I started off tonight, where they had those crappy properties in Atlanta. On paper, they look fantastic. I invested in some of these properties in South Africa. I invested in some of these properties outside of England, up in North England, where on paper, they've got a very high yield, a very high income return. I call it a paper yield. But there's a difference between a paper yield and a bank yield. And a bank yield is the money that actually ends up in your bank account. And it's really important that you discern between a paper yield and a bank yield, because sometimes things look really good on paper, but what is the actual return that you're going to get? Now, let's just look at some of our performance. This was one of our medical deals that we bought in 2014. It's paid out a cash-on-cash return. It had a projected return of 8.3%. This is in US dollars per annum. It's paid out over 9%, and it's got an internal rate of return of over 15%. This medical 2 has paid out a cash flow of over 10% cash on cash. This is in US dollars. And actually, we've sold now medical 1 and medical 2, and the investors have now done a full cycle, a full 5 years, where they've not only got the cash flow per quarter, but they're now getting their capital back. And how do I know? Because I also invested in these deals. Medical 3, they're actually looking to sell at the moment. That's at an 8% cash on cash for the last 3 years. Medical 5 is 8%. And what I encourage you to do is go to our website and look at our track record. So you can literally go in and you can go to our track record. It's on the platform. So all you do is you go to Marketplace and you go to our track record, and you can go and read all about the track record. Go and look at all the different deals, how they're doing, what their different returns are. You can see who the different partners are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I see that we still don't have a number of the other deals up here, Kensington, Cyprus, the land deals. We've had 6 successful exits. So this is something that we actually need to keep filling up in terms of that process. But track record is really, really important. And as I said to you, it doesn't always work. We've had 2 deals, one Cyprus, one Kensington, that haven't gone according to plan. And we've had to work very hard with the partner Orvest to get those back on track and ultimately to get results. The fourth one is all about offshore financing. So a lot of people probably understand leveraging. I wanted to put up a little definition of leverage. Leverage is when you use borrowed capital or debt to increase the potential return of investment. In real estate, the most common way to leverage your investment is with your own money or through a mortgage. Leverage works to your advantage when real estate values rise, but it can also lead to losses when real estate values, decline. Now, this is an intermediate webinar tonight, as in it's not for beginners who are just trying to learn how to invest in real estate. You need to go and do the how to buy a house webinar. But so I'm going to assume that people already know what leverage is and that they understand that it's good for making a return, but it can also add risk if you don't understand what you're doing. The question I've got is that what is OPM? And a lot of people, go on these courses and everything else, and they get taught, OPM, OPM, OPM. What does OPM stand for? I can see a lot of people asking questions. I will come back and answer all the questions at the end if there's questions I haven't answered. So everyone's putting down OPM as other people's money. You've all been to a rich dad, poor dad event or something along those lines, and that's exactly what it is. People think that it's other people's money. I believe that there's a more advanced way of looking at OPM, and it's actually other people's mortgages. Now, as we invest around the world, not only locally but internationally, it's since the last crash in 2008, 2009, it's become harder and harder and harder to get a mortgage. Am I right or am I wrong? Any of us that have been investing, I told you already, I started investing in 1999. From 99 to 2008, it was very easy to get mortgages. I got mortgages in the UK where I literally paid the equity, the deposit, using credit cards. Okay, and I know lots of other people, I wouldn't necessarily advise that, but that's what we did. That's how we got started. Okay, nowadays that would be impossible. Okay, so what you need to look at now is with OPM is other people's mortgages. Who can you partner with to help you get a mortgage? Now, a good example is this property, which we're buying in London. It's in Tunbridge Wells, which is about 35 minutes on a fast train directly into London. Beautiful, beautiful place. It's a 3-story building. We've got 3 separate apartments, and I really like it. I was, the one that went on the ground and did the due diligence and wanted to invest myself. And I actually wanted to arrange the mortgage, so I wanted to do this myself actually. And for someone that's been buying in England since 2002, I've got a 20-year track record with Lloyd's, TSB. I mean, I thought, how difficult can it be to get a mortgage? I've even got a foreign income. I've got a British passport. I mean, what more would you want? And I learned the hard way. I could basically borrow at 2% plus, 4.5% plus prime. Okay, now prime is currently sitting at about 2%, which basically means that in today's money, I would be borrowing at 6.5%. Now, interest rates are the lowest they've ever been in the 350 years since the Bank of England has existed. Okay, so do you think they're going to go up or down? Okay, in the medium to long term. And yet I was borrowing way over what the locals were borrowing at. And so we partnered with a local company, with a local person, and they've helped us get the mortgage. We managed to get it fixed at 3.23%, fixed on, I can't remember if it was a 2-year fix or a 5-year fix now, but it doesn't really matter. It's fixed. And it's literally half the cost of capital. If you take America as an example, when we first started buying houses in America, we couldn't get financing from the bank, so we bought them all cash. Then we managed to get hard money, which is private money, and we were borrowing at 11 or 12%. And then we got into commercial, and in commercial we're borrowing at 3.5%, and we're fixing it. I know Brendan's deal, the Infinity deal, is fixed for like 20 years. It's unheard of, but you're never going to be able to get those deals yourself. So it's hard enough to get them in your own country. You're never going to be able to get them overseas. I don't care how much money you've got, because you don't have the track record. And that's what OPM is, other people's mortgages. By partnering with partners on the ground, you get a much cheaper cost of capital, which gets you far better cash-on-cash returns. And then the last one, building a team. Such an obvious one, and yet so many people don't do it. Together, everyone achieves more. It's that little acronym of what a team is. And the question I've got for you is, do you know the 8 roles that you need to hire for your real estate team? So if you are super wealthy and super sophisticated, who are the 8 people in your team? You should know this. Every team should have 8 people. I started off tonight with the 8 core areas to real estate or property investing. There are 8 roles that you need to have in your real estate team. And the problem is that the current system has me, the investor, or you, the investor, and it has the investment over there. And there are actually 16 different middlemen on average between you or me, the investor, and our investment. There's no trust in the system. There's no transparency. And because of the high fees, low returns, there's very little alignment. We decided this was broken. We decided this had to change. And so what we did was take quality partners like the one I just showed you, Crestwood Property Solutions. They've been helping South Africans invest in London for the last 10 years. They only do business by referral and helping people invest in direct property. They then go and list their property on our platform, and you and me get direct access to invest directly with the partner. And there's 4 simple steps. We sign up on the platform, we select an investment, we transact online, and we manage the portfolio. Now, I want to be very clear. We are not financial advisors. We don't tell you what to do with your money. We give you all the tools so that you can make educated and informed decisions, and you can choose what is best for you in your future. The statistics are amazing. 96% of fund managers do not beat the market average. I am not arrogant, and neither is my team, or stupid enough to think that we know better for what is good for you. And that is why we've allowed you the ability. So Wealth Migrate ultimately allows you now to focus on global real estate investing. What used to take months or years, you can do in minutes. You can get access to quality partners with quality opportunities. You can invest from literally $1,000. You know, in the past, it was all about hassles, management, maintenance, broken toilets, broken taps, you know, and that wasn't even talking about tax and structuring and bank accounts. Nowadays, you don't need to worry about any of that. You can just focus on the best returns and getting access to the best partners and building a global portfolio. This is our team of partners, a mixture between our global leadership team and our board and our advisors. You can see that there's a plethora of experience across both technology, regulation, banking, real estate, etc. And we've also got a very broad-based team. We've got people in the UK, America, Australia, China, the UAE, I think I said England. And it's really important that you need to understand that, because if you're wanting to invest globally, you've got to have people with local knowledge to be able to participate. So you can build your own team, or you can just join a team that already exists. Our track record is we've got people in, you know, members now in 133 countries. We've invested over $565 million in deals. We've actually had more than $94 million go through the platform. We've paid out over $8 million in dividends already. And probably the thing, even though we've won numerous awards, and I actually need to update this because we just won another award, top 12 fintech company in Africa, which is really, and we actually have to go to the semi-finals. And if we get through to that, we'll represent Africa in Singapore at the Global Fintech Awards. But that's not what we're proudest of. We're proudest of the fact that we've got a higher than 70% reinvestment rate, which basically means that when people invest, they like what we're doing and they reinvest. And so the question I've got for you when we talk about skill 5 and building a team is, you know, are you going to do it on your own, or are you going to follow the laws of nature? You know, a bird flying on its own compared to a bird flying in a flock. A bird flying in a flock can fly 70% further than a bird flying on its own. When the fish swim across the ocean, they swim in a shoal. When the animals migrate across the plains, they go in a herd. Why would we want to, as investors, do it on our own? You know, it doesn't make any logical sense for me. And you know, it's really important when one looks at the team. You know, buying a property is just 20% of the overall transaction. Managing the asset, the ongoing returns, the management, the maintenance, and everything else is actually 80% of your ongoing return. So you need to determine who your partners are. Are they just a bunch of salesmen, or someone that is going to be there for the long term and hold your hand on a journey? You also need to ask them about referrals and ask them for the challenges they've had. I'll tell you about the mistakes we've had. Go and read chapter 13 of my book. I've told you tonight about 2 of our projects that haven't gone according to plan. And if they tell you that it's all work, they're lying, or they've never been in business. Because if you invest or you've been in property, things have gone wrong, I guarantee you. And what's important is how you actually dealt with it. And then, you know, what have they done to set up a community? You know, for what people, you know, don't realize is that in every deal we do now, we create WhatsApp groups so that people can communicate. We've got the inner circle. We've got all these different communities so that we can grow and learn together, which I think are really, really important, you know, in terms of where we're at. So those are the 5 secrets to offshore investing. To remind you, it's number 1, information and research. Number 2 is getting access to the best partners. Number 3, it's all about passive income and cash flow. Number 4 is it's about offshore financing, or what we call OPM, other people's mortgages. And number 5 is all about the building the best team. Now, if this added value to you and you want to go deeper, we're going to be having offshore investor breakfasts, which we're going to be taking place from the 12th to the 15th of November. You can see that in Durban on the 12th of November, in Cape Town on the 13th of November, in Johannesburg on the 14th of November, and Pretoria on the 15th of November. We're going to have myself, and we're going to have a number of other authorities in the space that are going to be sharing with you. The session 1 will be a 2-hour session where I will be running it, and we will be looking at the 12 most important things you need to know. We'll be looking at how to manage risk and grow your capital, how to diversify simply and safely without hassle, which countries are the best to invest in, how to achieve wealth preservation, a plan B, and peace of mind, what impact currency has on long-term wealth, how to get a foreign passport and how to become a global citizen, how to find the right partners, what are the best real estate investment sectors based on the global economy, what are the fundamentals and what does the data say, how can I get started? Someone said, yeah, I don't have a lot of money, how can I get started? How can I get started from $1,000? What are the major trends that I need to be aware of? How can I immigrate either financially or physically? How can I have the freedom to live wherever I want in the world? And what secrets are the top 1% using when they're investing? Added to that, and it's not on the screen, but I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to share with you the 4 secrets to wealth. I'm going to share with you the different types of investment. I'm going to share with you the value chain of real estate, one of the most powerful lessons I've ever learned. I'm going to teach you about collaborative smart investing, basically how the kings and queens and monarchies have been investing for centuries. I'm going to teach you portfolio strategy. One of the most powerful strategies I've learned to creating global wealth is portfolio strategy. I'm going to teach you about the impact of fees, and ultimately, I'm going to teach you how to become a global citizen. Then we're going to have tea, and after tea, we're going to run into a dynamic Q&A. We're going to have Hilda Lunderstedt, that is one of the most respected business ladies, not only in South Africa, but globally. And we're going to have Garth Wellman, that runs a family office. And in this session, we're going to be running a Q&A. I'm going to be doing a Q&A with them and with the people in the room as to where the global economy is going. What should we be concerned about? What are the wealthiest people doing? What are the risks you should be aware of? What is the situation with South Africa? And what are wealthy people in South Africa doing? You know, how are we going to get a balanced portfolio with the right mix of assets? How economically resilient are you? And no matter what happens in the global markets, what should I do about tax and structuring? What about immigrating? You know, what about learning from first-hand people that have been through it and what they need to do to be prepared, and what are some of the challenges? What about planning and what was needed to happen? Asking the experts about where the world is going in the next decade and how you can prepare for it. How you can take advantage of the opportunities which are coming, and how you can protect against the risks. And then we're going to have a bonus session on Wealth 5.0, not only how you can survive, but how you can thrive going into the next decade. And there's going to be the top 10 principles from successful people that you can actually apply in your life. And so that's the breakfast, okay? And you know, I'd highly recommend that you come along to the breakfast. If you want to stay for the VIP lunch, and at the VIP lunch, we will be actually having our partners, and they'll be talking about the different property deals and the different opportunities that we've got. So if you want to actually learn, you know, I believe deeply in compressing time. So, you know, everyone that is part of the lunch will come along. They'll be able to spend time with myself and Hilda and Garth. But more importantly, we're going to be doing sessions from the property partners. We're also going to be doing first-hand demos on how you can invest. And if you want to bring along your KYC and document, we're going to have people that will actually hold your hand in that process. And so just, you know, for people that just want to come to the breakfast, that's a silver ticket. If people want to come to the breakfast and the lunch, that's a gold ticket. What I've found though, over the last, sorry, just before I go there, every single person that has a silver or a gold ticket will also get access to our eWealth pack. So you can see here our eWealth pack. Our eWealth pack is worth $5,000. And what you will actually get is you'll get access to my book. You'll get access to our investor test. You'll get access to the 8 steps to wealth through real estate micro degree. You know, I could go into these in more detail if people want. You'll get access at a discount to the inner circle. All the white papers that I spoke about tonight. There's a whole recommended library that you can read through. And there's also life hacks, so different blog posts, websites, courses, etc. that we highly recommend. So every single person that comes and gets a silver or gold ticket will get access to our eWealth pack. I also find that something that's happened over this year more and more is that people have wanted to have one-to-ones with me. You know, when it comes to offshore investing, as much as they understand the principles, they want to talk about them and themselves and their personalized path. And so we've now created this as an opportunity, and you know, talking to Hilda and Garth, they've also kindly volunteered to do one-to-ones. And so we've offered a platinum ticket. So a platinum ticket will be that you get the entire breakfast, you also get the VIP lunch, and you get a one-to-one session with a person of your choice, whether that's Hilda and understanding how she grew a global business, how she became a global citizen, how she immigrated to America, whether that's Garth and all around the tax, the structuring and the financial planning, or whether it's myself and all, you know, how do you build a global real estate portfolio, etc. You can get to choose one of those people where you'll have an online opportunity to be able to sit with them. Now, ideally, if you sign up, I would actually suggest that you do the one-to-ones before the breakfasts and the lunches, so that you're getting maximum value at the breakfast and the lunches, which is why we've put aside the whole of October. And then in terms of the prices, it's $47 for anyone that wants to come to the as a silver. It's $147 if you want to come to the VIP lunch, and it's $297 if you want to come to the breakfast, the lunch, and also have the one-to-one session. Now, people ask me, why is it in dollars? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to train you to be a global citizen. You know, I've just got back from Japan watching the Rugby World Cup. I then spent 10 days in San Diego. It's really not pleasant to be spending money in rands. But I'm lucky because I don't have to worry about rands, because since the age of, you know, literally 22, I've only ever earned offshore currency. That's what it's about to be a global citizen. And so we don't talk in rands, we don't talk in Zimbabwe dollars, we don't talk in any currency, we talk in US dollars, because it is at the moment the global standard. But I've got good news for you. We're running a webinar tonight. We've got another webinar next Tuesday. And up until the 16th of October, if you go to the landing page, and I'll give you the link to the landing page, it's literally a 40% discount. Okay, so of all those prices, it's a 40% discount. After the 16th of October, that discount will disappear. And we want to acknowledge the people who turned up to this webinar tonight that are proactive and want to be part of the events. And then for our wealth partners, I did talk about our wealth weekend. It's an exclusive weekend. We do it once a year. We're doing it again in Africa. You know, next year I hope to do it in China or India or Europe. But this year we're going to do it again in Africa. And we always get together on the Friday evening. We have a social event on the Friday evening. We've got a surprise on Friday night. And then on Saturday, Hilda is actually going to run a global wealth masterclass. And you can see there that there's 10 different sessions about, you know, creating your best life. Yes. Are you thinking big enough? How do you have the mindset? The wealth skill number 1, business and entrepreneurship, leadership, time management, healthy, happy, and longevity, how to stop making excuses, and ultimately how to master yourself, and then launching yourself and being ready for the next decade. Now, we've got very many wealthy people that are part of our community, but Hilda is one of the most successful people, not only in South Africa, but globally. And she's going to share with you the skill sets, the tips, and the secrets, so that you can not only survive going into the next decade, but you can thrive. Now, if you're a wealth partner, we'll be sending you an email with a special code. You'll get a special discount based on the level of wealth partner that you are. If you're not a wealth partner, the cost to come on the course is $997. There are only 20 spaces. So the majority of the spaces are for our wealth partners. If you're not a wealth partner, there are only 20 spaces, and it will be by invite only. And you will need to come for the whole weekend. So it is the whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday morning, that the course will be taking place, and everyone will leave on Sunday afternoon. For the wealth partners and for the people doing the Global Wealth Masterclass, we make no money out of the weekend. You will literally just pay for your accommodation on top of it. And so, in conclusion, my question to you is, what are you doing to be a global citizen? And I'd like to launch a poll quickly and ask you, are you ready to invest? Because as a global citizen, I've spoken a lot tonight about being a global citizen. I've given you examples of my father. I've given you examples of my uncle. I've given you examples of myself. I've given you examples of Hilda and other people. And the question I've got for you is, what are you doing to be a global citizen? And I've got the poll up for you, and I'd love to know, how many people are actually ready to take that step forward to becoming a global citizen. I've run 3 comrades. I know you wouldn't believe it if you saw me, but there's only one way to finish comrades, and it's to take the first step. And I think that's really, really important. And so for those of you who want to know what the next step is, you can literally see here. Let me close out that poll. You can go and sign up for the events, and the website is www.wealthmigrate.online/wealth5. And you can basically join us. And if I go to that website, you can see that it's here. And you can basically go in, and it's all about the events, everything that I've shown you, who the different speakers are. You can see the schedule that I've already shared with you. You can see the breakdown between the tickets, which ticket is right for you. And then ultimately you can go in and buy the tickets that suit you. As I said to you, there's a 40% discount on this particular for these events up until next Wednesday, basically. And then ultimately you can join us at the breakfast. You can come and meet us, you can meet our authorities, you can meet our partners, because we really want to start you on the journey to becoming a global citizen. And then if you're wanting to do the platinum, you can work with someone who's already done it, whether it's me or Hilda or Garth. We want to work with you in a one-to-one environment and actually help you, get set up and hopefully make the most of, of the opportunity. Now, just for something that I'm fairly interested in is what would you be interested in around the world? Are you interested in a London residential building like the one I showed you, that building with three different flats, 3 different rental income streams? I like that because it's low risk. No matter what happens with Brexit, Brexit actually is presenting a tremendously good opportunity and allows us to be able to participate. Or is it a debt product? There's a development in Cape Town, which is a debt product. Is it RB Care Homes, which is an aged care building in England and is actually paying at 10%? So the Cape Town one is paying an 18% return. The England one in pounds is paying a 10% cash on cash return. Is it a medical building in America, which is paying you an 8% cash on cash return? Or is it a multi-family building, which is paying you an 8% cash on cash return? And again, tonight I don't have time to talk about all these different opportunities, but if you did want to, you could literally log in, you could go onto the platform, you can literally, once you log in, you can go and look at all the different opportunities that are here, and you can go and read up about them, whether it was the medical building or the Oklahoma building. You can literally click on it, you can go and read up on all the different information, you can understand the risks, you can read all the different documentation and the sponsors and everything else. So you've got complete access to, sorry, I just realized I've been showing you all the stuff while I had the poll up. Anyway, my point being is that you can literally go in and you can go into the platform, you can log in, you can literally go in here, you can look at all the different opportunities. If you click on any one of them, this is the medical building, you can go read all about it, you can see all about the different risks, you can read all about the sponsors, you can download all the documentation, etc., etc., etc. So that's all at your fingertips already in terms of the process. And then, what I'm interested in is where and what people are interested in terms of the different opportunities. Then in terms of what do you want to do next, you've got the next steps up on the board, and you can see there, I need some more info, I would like to speak to someone, I'm not interested at the moment, I'll attend the offshore breakfast, I'm happy with the information and can proceed, I want to have a one-to-one, so a platinum ticket, and I'm just interested. Your time is extremely valuable, and most importantly for us, the more you are let us know what you want, the more we can actually help you achieve what you want in terms of where the world is going. So I'll just give people a little bit of time to give their preferences in terms of what they want. If you've got any questions, please type them into the question box. I am conscious of your time, but I will stay here as late as possible to answer all your questions. Just taking a sip of water while you're managing that poll. And for those of you not doing the poll, come on, interact. The fastest way to success is to take action. Okay, so let me close that out, and you'll see while I'm talking here, you've basically got all the next steps in terms of where we're at. I've got 1 or 2 more polls to go. I've got 2 more polls to go, and then I'm going to go straight into the Q&A. I'm just interested, if you were ready to invest or wanted to invest, what level of investment would you be looking at? Would it be $100 to $1,000? Would it be $1,000 to $10,000? $10,000 to $50,000? $50,000 to $250,000, or $250,000 or more. Now, what's really interesting to me is, I've helped numerous people invest more than $1 million directly into deals, and so, I've helped everyone from $100, right through to a couple of $1 million, and so nothing surprises me. But what's interesting is trying to understand what thresholds people want to invest at. We're also creating a very unique service for people that want to invest $1 million or more. And if you are interested in that, just reach out and say $1 million or whatever you want to say, basically. But it's going to be a very exclusive group of people that have invested $1 million plus, and a service that we're going to be providing them in terms of that process. Okay, so I can see about 60% of people have voted, so that's great. I'm going to close out the poll, and then the very last one, is just when would you like to invest. So while we're doing that, that poll, I'm going to go through this quickly and see if I've got any questions that I have not answered. So a lot of people were giving me what WealthE 5.0 is. Interested to know how many people were on this webinar. When I last checked, Gavin, there were over 970. I haven't seen the latest numbers. I'll download them afterwards. Will there be a copy of this webinar afterwards? Yes, we certainly will. I can't find where to interact, Vinda, no problem. It's a little box up in the right-hand corner. Hopefully you did find it. To invest property, generate passive income. Okay, so these are all the reasons people are here. Yeah, please go back and look at your reason. I'd really ask you to go back and look at your reason of why you came to this webinar tonight. Hopefully it added a lot of value to you and it answered your question. And if it didn't answer your question, put the question in the box, or let me know, or the team know, because we've got 3 more webinars and we've got the live events. You're changing my habits and I want more. I want to acquire the skills to be financially free. I want to be part of the top 1% to learn. I'm Zimbabwean. So am I. I always tried to get into ZimSoc, but they never let me because I was born in South Africa. Education, knowledge, financial freedom for my 6-year-old son. Fantastic. Just by the way, my son is 7 and has been investing since he was 5. And so you can put investments in the name of your children. And, what better way than to play a real life Monopoly with them. Okay. So Susan says, I'm in the US. What can I apply from your advice? So Susan, we're actually working. We got our licenses last week, including a broker dealer and stuff. So we'll soon be able to help people in America, which is exciting. So watch the space. And as I said, the inner circle is the best place to go for now. Looks like you're focusing on investors in South Africa. What about investors from other countries, other tax regimes? Great question. The intention of these webinars will be probably more South African focused because we've got the live events in South Africa. We've got live events in India next year in March. So as we go through the sequence through the year, we will have different areas, but very happy for you to ask questions around the different countries, particularly when Garth and the others arrive, because they'll be able to help. Scott, you show how you did find the bottom in some countries. Which countries do you believe are now in a relative low? So that's a very interesting question, and I'll go through this quite a lot more, and I presume based on your previous question, you're not in South Africa. I will go through this in quite a lot more detail amongst the research and where to look in terms of the markets, because it's very important to look at a macro and a micro level. At the moment, the 2 top countries, or 2 of the top countries, I'm not saying they're the only 2, I like America. I think there's tremendous opportunity in America. I can show you all the research as to why America. I also like England. Brexit it presents an incredible opportunity. Wherever there's chaos, there's opportunity, and Brexit has presented a chaotic moment. The pound is weak against the dollar, and asset values are low, which means you're getting good returns. So at the moment, personally, I'm, 2 of my major markets I'm focusing on America and England for various reasons. But I don't know exactly how to pronounce your name, Bodavijin. Sorry, I apologize. But as I said, I can go much deeper into that, and happy to do that on one of the future webinars. Do you help people that have little to invest but want to start now? So I don't know, John, what you would refer to as little. Our minimum investment the first Wednesday of every month, we call it WealthE Wednesday. We drop the minimum investments down to $1,000. Sometimes they're higher. They could be $5,000 or $10,000. It depends on the partners, but on the first Wednesday of every month, we drop it to $1,000. And we are looking to bring in a solution with the inner circle where people can invest even from $100. How do you make money of this then? Great question, John. And we really copied. We used to have a model where it was much more like a PE model, it's called a 2 and 20, and where there's a waterfall and hurdles and performance fees. And I'll never forget, it was my 40th birthday, and I was watching a very, very intelligent friend of mine trying to understand it, and he just had no idea what a waterfall was, or a hurdle, or et cetera, et cetera. So we decided to copy the Airbnb model. I've got properties that are on Airbnb, and Airbnb just charge us a flat 3%. So I know that if I rent my property out for 1,000 Rand or $1,000, I'm going to get $970 back. That's a flat 3%. We have put the exact same model in where it's a transactional fee, it's a fixed percentage, it's completely transparent for people, and it's no more than 3% through the transaction. Okay, I can see lots of people saying other people's money, other people's mortgages. Well done, Gavin, you've been watching. Same to Tom and Pat. Well done on the other people's mortgages. What is the cost of the breakfast and the lunch? I did show that, John. If I go back to it here quickly, it's the breakfast is $47, which includes breakfast, so a proper breakfast. The lunch is $147, and the lunch, the breakfast, the lunch, and the one-to-ones is $297. However, if people sign up before the 16th of October, they're actually getting a 40% discount. Gavin, how is the global wallet progressing? Gavin, I'm not sure if you saw the WhatsApp I sent out to all shareholders last week. We got the licenses last week, so now we're purely in the tech integration. And I heard yesterday, and I don't want to be shot by my tech team, but they're saying about 4 weeks away, which is very exciting. Tony's asked, will you be able to run a similar session outside Africa? I live in New Zealand, and as such, it's a major mission to get there. Tony, point taken, granted, and we will look at ways of doing online as well. We will also be recording the events professionally, but we will find a way. We've got members in 133 countries, so we have to find ways. Craig, thank you for the positive message. Paul, Scott, I'm on your mailing list. May I email you later? I need to gather my thoughts. No problem. No problem, Paul. Geeta, who do you use for your estate planning, having international exposure? Any recommendations? Geeta, that's quite an interesting one. I've used quite a few. I've set up 4 structures myself, so I've wasted a lot of money and a lot of time in setting these up. And unfortunately, these people keep telling you that they can help you and do everything for you, and then I buy this bottle of water for $10, and then suddenly I've got 20 other expenses I didn't know about. So I've used Sovereign, I've used PKF, I've used a company called One Tax, which I'd highly recommend not using because the guy's disappeared and it's absolute bloody disaster. And Garth Wellman is going to be sharing on the webinar on the 28th of October, which I would highly recommend learning and listening from him, because he's helped some of the wealthiest people in the world. But we don't do it ourselves. We can certainly try and point you in the right direction. Could I have the link for the breakfast and also for the weekend, Greg? We certainly will. If you haven't seen the link, which is here at the moment, we will be sending out an email to everyone with the links. So just watch your emails. And yeah, we'd love to have you at the breakfast. We'd love to have you at the lunches. And my Wealth Weekend experience is my favorite weekend of the whole year. We're going to have the Wealth Awards. If you're a wealth partner, you know that this is not an event to be missed. There's incredible learning. There's incredible, I don't like the word networking, but partnership with our other wealth partners. It's literally the cream of the crop of our entire global community. And I cannot work hard and have fun. And anyone that's been on a Wealth Weekend will know how much fun we have. So thank you, Andre. I want to invest for my deaf son, who perhaps stands a chance to be a global citizen by inheritance. Yeah, fantastic. At the end of the day, Mary, we want to empower everyone. It's interesting. The very next slide I wanted to share with you is that what we're passionate about is freedom of choice. And so what I hope for your son, and for everyone's sons, daughters, and for everyone who's on this webinar, again, I don't mind where you want to invest. I don't mind, where you want to live or where you want to go to school or university or anything else with your children, what you want to do. It doesn't bother me. But what we are deeply passionate about is providing you or your son, no matter what, gifts we've been given in our lives or challenges, whichever way you want to look at it, we want to provide people with that freedom. Geeta said, can you recommend an accountant to handle the tax issues of various countries? Yes, we can, Geeta. We've actually got a directory on our platform where we've got vetted professionals, because obviously when it comes to tax, you've got accountants in England, Australia, America, South Africa. Can a child invest overseas as a South African, Carl? Yes, my child lives in Knysna and has done it, and many, many other children that we know of have done it. Is it technically possible to stream the breakfast session? Good question, Tony. I would need to find out. The only problem that I've had in the past is the quality of the internet at the venues, but possibly we can look at finding a solution. So, but Tony, I hear you loud and clearly. Like I said, members in 133 countries. We want to find a blend between online, digital, and live events. Sean has said, thank you. Look forward to finding out more on how and where to start. Sign up on the Wealth Migrate website. Perfect, Sean. And as I said to everyone, I look forward to inviting you on a journey. And remember that tonight's webinar was freedom of choice, but I want to finish with there's still a bunch more questions, but I just want to finish because I'm I'm worried about the time. Our social problem is we want to empower 1 billion people and solve the gap. We want to invite you on a journey. We created the Wealth Movement about 5 years ago, and Hilda actually wrote our manifesto. And she said, imagine a world where most or all people are literate, a world where education is par for the course, a world where women are treated as equals, a world where all people have access to investment opportunities. Imagine a world where 6 billion people on the planet who currently live in poverty can live a better life. Imagine that world. At the Wealth Movement, we aim to create that world. And for me, this is so exciting. Don't complain about your present. Don't complain about your problems. They are gifts. They are opportunities. Let's create the future together. And anyone that is part of the event will go towards, we contribute towards a young man called Bongi. We've got 3 legs to the Wealth Movement. We've got empowering children with entrepreneurship education. We've got financial education, empowering women with financial education. We call it Women in Wealth. And we've also got empowering the 99% to be able to invest like the top 1% using technology. And this young gentleman, we found him at an entrepreneur event in 2015. His dream was to go to a private school. We've now, through crowdfunding and through our amazing community, funded him. He's been a captain of Southwestern districts. He's doing very well at school. He's a great leader. In his holidays, he goes off and he works the whole holiday, and he wants to be a mechanical engineer. And I tend to joke with people, he could be the next Elon Musk. And if you come and be part of the events, you are helping be part of creating the future you want to see. And so there you have the next steps. Can we buy the recordings of the breakfast? As I said, Rion to Tony, I'll have to figure that out. 1 offshore and breakfast, gold ticket, 88. I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, Graham, but the offshore investor breakfast is just the breakfast is definitely cheaper than that. Gita said thank you. Graham said please. Durban, sorry Graham, what did I say earlier? I can't remember. What did Graham say earlier? Graham. Oh, can't remember what your question was. Sorry, Graham. There's so many questions. Then Gregory said a great session. I look forward to the remaining ones. Yeah, so we're pretty much done, Gregory. I'm just going through all the questions. And as I said, don't miss the webinar next week on immigration, both whether you want to do it physically or financially. We've got some amazing people we're going to be interviewing. The week after that is Hilda Lunderstedt, and the week after that is Garth Wellman. Okay, I must grow faster to achieve my goals. OPM, I think, is the way. Experience, if that is possible, with SPV on Wealth Migrate, or do you mean to realize own projects with OPM? So yeah, look, it's basically Hans. Everything for us is about OPM and partnering with partners and ultimately getting leverage in every deal, but not at exposing. So at 65%. Okay, Mohammed has said, Greg said thank you. Mohammed has said thank you. It would be great if you could stream the breakfast. Perfect. Where are all the people that wanted to stream it? I'm just interested what country you're in. I'd appreciate if you let me know, because I'd prefer people to turn up live. I obviously want to stream it for people that aren't in the cities we're going to be in, which are Durban, Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Pretoria. And obviously, if there's people overseas, we want to find a solution. Geeta, you're a rock star. Thank you. Smai, thank you. I've already have residential property in South Africa. Are you going to talk about diversification of property portfolio at the breakfast? Very much so. It's going to be one of the most important parts. I always say to people, whether you invest in South Africa or Christchurch when they had the earthquake. I know a guy that invested in Christchurch. He had 8 commercial buildings and it nearly bankrupted him. If you invested all your money in American property in 2008, you would have felt a bit stupid when the market lost between 40 to 70%. It's not a South African problem. It's a global problem. Right now with Brexit, you've got to be careful of which markets and which sectors. And so diversification is something that is common sense, the fact that the South African GDP is only 1% of the global GDP, it would be common sense to think about diversifying. And no matter where you live in the world, you want to diversify across assets, currencies, currencies, and countries. So it's definitely something we'll be focusing on. It'll be a major focus. Graham, you're booking a ticket, so we'll see you in Durban. Fantastic. Geeta for now, SA for November, UK. Okay, Geeta, so understood. Mohammed, you're in Durban, so I'd like to see you if you can in Durban. Rion and George, we always have people coming from George down to Cape Town. Again, I can't. It's like anything in life. If you do it online, it's just so much better live. I've been doing Tony Robbins events as an example since 15 years. I just flew all the way to San Diego to do a live event for 4 days, and it has materially changed my life. And I would never have had that same experience online. And so, we will figure out a way to do it online, because obviously people in 133 countries can't reach all of them. Yeah, and I hope everyone's got the link. If you didn't, you should have the link here, the wealthmigrate.online/wealth 5.0. And if I haven't given you the link, or if the link's not there for the Wealth Weekend, watch your emails. We will be following up. Stefani, you're in Germany. Where and when is the event in Durban? The event in Durban is on the 12th. So if we go back to this page, which you should all have access to, which is around the events, you can actually see here all the different events. So Durban is on the 12th, Cape Town is on the 13th of November, so 12th of November, 13th of November, Johannesburg 14th of November, Pretoria 15th of November, and then the Wealth Weekend is the 15th to the 17th. And you can go through and see what the agenda is in each city. When will you be in Joburg? Joburg is the 14th of November, Pretoria is the 15th of November, and then the Wealth Weekend is Friday evening, the 15th through to the 17th. Okay, Smile, we'll see you on the 14th. Fantastic. I really look forward to seeing as many of you as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish off. It is late for everybody. I ask you one last thing. If you've enjoyed this webinar, and if you think it would add value to your friends and your family, please share it with them. There will be a recording of this webinar. We've got 3 very powerful webinars coming up in the series. Share the breakfast with them. I'm sick and tired of listening to South Africans complain and be scared and be nervous. I understand why they're scared. I understand why they're nervous. And to some extent, I understand why they're complaining. But I'm a big believer that what you focus on is what you create. And I believe that rather than complaining about problems, let's focus on providing solutions. Let's focus on empowering people. And so whether you live in South Africa or you live anywhere else in the world, please go out and share this with people. The world is changing. I'm listening to a book at the moment, Thank You for Being Late. They reckon that we're at the biggest change ever since the Gutenberg printing press in 1440. We are at a stage where there's accelerating change in so many different fields: technology, social changes, climate changes, economic changes, and they're all colliding. And people are nervous. And in a state of nervousness, there's only one way to get peace of mind, and that's to have knowledge. And that's why we're doing what we do. And I really encourage you to please not only join yourself and come to the webinars, come to the live events, come to the Wealth Weekend. There's no better way to get success than through proximity. Proximity is power. Why do you think I just flew all the way to San Diego, California to be with Tony Robbins and these incredible people to learn around leadership? It's because proximity. I've learned that the fastest way to be successful is to put myself in the room where I am the dumbest, poorest guy. And so I encourage you to come and get proximity and to get that power yourself. And then I beg you, I ask you to please share it with others, because there's hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people that I know we can add value to. And all we need is for them to know about it and for them to take a bit of a risk with their time so that they can come and learn that there's a new way. Because I remind you of the story I started with. My father did what we were taught to do. He went to school, he went to university, he worked hard, he trusted the financial industry, he invested, he paid his taxes, and yet he died broke. And statistically, 94% of you, if you're based in England, Australia, or America, so that's not even South Africa, are going to follow my dad. 5% of you are going to be financially independent, which basically means you're 25% poorer than your last paycheck, and only 1% of you are going to succeed. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And we're welcoming you. We're inviting you on a journey to do it differently. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been wonderful having you. Sorry for my little rant at the end, but I'm very, very passionate about this. Have a good evening. Cheers. And if you're watching the recording, click on the links below. Bye then.